He thought the boy was just another runaway until he saw the scars. Then came the rancher with the fake smile and the sheriff who wouldn't look them in the eye. But when the child lifted his sleeve and revealed what they did to him, the truth ignited like wildfire. What happened next shattered everything they thought they could hide. But first, let's go back to where it all began. The sun was just starting to rise over the plains of South Dakota when Jack Hale, 47, rugged and weather-worn, stepped into his old red barn. He wasn't expecting anything unusual, just another morning feeding the horses and checking the fence line. But as he opened the stall near the back, his boot froze mid-step. There, curled on a bed of moldy straw, was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 11. Native, with shoulder-length black hair matted with sweat and dust. His wrists were chained to a beam above his head, raw and bruised. His clothes, a dirty gray shirt and ripped jeans, were soaked from a spilled water trough. And his eyes were wide, wild, and full of terror. Jack dropped to one knee. "Jesus! Hey! It's all right." The boy flinched and kicked, shouting something in Lakota. Jack backed up, hands raised. "I'm not gonna hurt you." It took a few more seconds before Jack realized someone had used a logging chain to bind the boy, padlocked tight. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate, meant to be hidden. Heart pounding, Jack ran to his truck and returned with bolt cutters. The boy screamed when Jack approached, but Jack kept his voice calm, low. "Hold still. Just a second, kid." With a loud snap, the chain gave way. The boy collapsed forward. Jack caught him before he hit the ground. "Name?" Jack asked. No answer. Jack sighed, lifting the boy gently and setting him in a pile of fresh hay. "Okay. No cops, not yet. No ambulance either. You'd bolt." "All right." He fetched a clean blanket and a bottle of water. When he came back, the boy had tucked his knees to his chest, watching Jack like a cornered animal. And that's when Jack noticed it. Car tracks, deep and recent. Someone had driven up to his barn in the middle of the night. Someone had dropped this kid off like trash. And whoever it was, they'd probably be back. Jack clenched his jaw and stepped outside. He locked the barn door from the inside that night, not to keep the boy in, but to keep the monsters out. The storm had passed overnight, leaving the sky scrubbed clean and bitter blue. Jack came into the barn early, the cold still clinging to the wooden beams. A thin beam of light streamed through a crack in the roof, illuminating the pile of straw where the boy had curled up like a stray. He hadn't moved. Jack knelt beside him and gently placed a folded blanket over the boy's shoulders. The boy didn't flinch this time, but he didn't speak either. He was around 13 or 14, Jack guessed. Maybe younger. Malnourishment making him look like a ghost. His black hair was matted, sticking to his forehead. His wrists, though now unshackled, were wrapped in raw, scabbing burns. Angry red bands where rope had eaten through the skin. There were deeper bruises on his ribs, some yellowing, others fresh. Jack set down a tin plate with a slice of cornbread and bacon. "I don't know if you like it crispy," he said, trying to lighten the mood. "It's how my sister makes it. Never lets me near the stove." No response. The boy slowly reached for the cornbread, tore a corner off, and ate in silence, eyes fixed on the barn door. Jack noticed something else then. A scar. Small, circular, just under the boy's collarbone. It wasn't accidental. Jack knew exactly what it was. The mark left by a cigarette being put out on bare flesh. His jaw clenched. Later that morning, Jack found him sitting in the frost-covered grass outside the barn, staring east, toward the open prairie and distant hills. The sun was climbing, turning the fields gold. Crows circled high above in slow arcs. Jack sat beside him quietly. "You're not a horse, you know," he said gently. "Not something to keep in a stall. You're someone's kid. You got a name?" The boy said nothing, just kept chewing the crust of cornbread, his hands trembling slightly. Then, after a long silence, "Isaac." Jack nodded, swallowing a breath. "All right, Isaac." It was the first thing he'd said, and Jack could feel the weight of it, like hearing a match strike in a cave. That night, Jack called his sister, Claire, from the house phone. "She's Lakota," he said. "So's the boy. Can you look into tribal records? I'm not asking you to break any laws, but someone did this to him, and they're not going to stop." Claire was silent for a long moment. "Jack, if someone's got eyes on him, you could lose your land for hiding him. You could lose everything." "I know," Jack said, "but I already made my choice." The next day was quiet. Too quiet. Jack rode into town to pick up supplies and call an old contact in Rapid City. When he came back 2 hours later, the front gate was open. One of the chickens was loose in the drive. He jumped out of the truck and ran to the barn. The door was ajar, just barely. "Isaac?" No answer. Jack pushed the door open and saw Isaac crouched under a blanket of hay, curled into himself, shoulders heaving silently. His face was streaked with dirt and fear. He wasn't crying, but he was barely breathing. On the floor, near the stall gate, was a cigarette, still warm. The tip had burned into the dirt, leaving a blackened scar. Someone had been there. Someone who smoked menthols, the same smell Jack had caught faintly when he first found the boy. Jack picked it up with trembling fingers. Someone knew. Someone had come back, and they would be back again. He looked down at Isaac, his hand hovering protectively over the boy's shoulder. This wasn't just about hiding a kid anymore, it was war. Jack didn't sleep that night. He sat by the front window of his ranch house, shotgun propped across his knees, eyes flicking between the barn and the road. The wind had picked up again, whistling through the eaves. Isaac was inside the barn, safe for now, but Jack knew whoever left that cigarette wasn't done. The boy hadn't said a word since. Jack's own thoughts churned like cattle in a thunderstorm. The image of the burn marks, the trembling hands, the silence. Someone had laid claim to that boy, someone who thought they could come back whenever they wanted, and if they did, he wouldn't let that happen. The next morning, Jack drove Isaac into the small Lakota community 40 miles south. He'd contacted a woman named Emma Two Feathers, an elder who worked with missing and at-risk youth. They met at an empty church hall, plain wooden benches and a pot of weak coffee between them. Isaac refused to go inside. So Emma came out. She was in her 60s, wiry and weathered, with long gray-streaked braids. She crouched down in front of Isaac. No pressure, no questions, just presence. After a long silence, she reached into her woven leather bag and handed him something small, a worn brass pendant etched with the Lakota symbol for hope after suffering. A circle, broken, then closed again. Isaac took it with both hands. Still no words, but he nodded once. That was enough. Jack told Emma everything, about the barn, the injuries, the cigarette. When he finished, her face was calm but unreadable. "There's a man named Frank Keller," she finally said. "White rancher, married into a Lakota family decades ago. His wife passed. After that, something in him twisted. He started taking in foster children, tribal kids. Said it was for discipline." She looked Jack in the eyes. "No one talks about it because his brother's county sheriff. They keep it quiet. But we've heard stories." Jack felt the rage boil up in his chest, slow and steady. "And nobody stopped him?" Emma shrugged. "No proof, only broken kids who don't talk." That night, Jack stood in his barn with Isaac beside him. He held up a photo Emma had given him. A group shot. 5 kids lined up in front of a red brick house, eyes hollow, all barefoot. Third from the left was Isaac. Isaac stared at the photo like it had just punched him in the chest. "I thought so," Jack said quietly. "That's the man, isn't it?" Isaac nodded. Then he did something Jack didn't expect. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the brass pendant. He held it out toward Jack, silently asking for help. Jack took it, gripped it like a promise. "You're not going back there," Jack said, voice like gravel. He didn't know what they'd face yet, but he knew what he had to do. He'd go to Frank Keller's ranch and make sure Isaac was never chained again. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Jack was already on the road. His old pickup rumbled through the frost-lined county lanes, heading west toward the Keller ranch. Isaac sat beside him, wrapped in a denim jacket several sizes too big, holding Emma's pendant in his fist like a lifeline. He still hadn't spoken a word. He didn't need to. When they crested the ridge, Jack pulled off the road and cut the engine. The Keller ranch lay sprawled beneath them, too pristine. White fences, clean barns, windmills spinning like everything was just fine. But Jack saw it now for what it was, a polished shell hiding rot. He parked by the gate, walked up to the front porch with Isaac behind him, silent and steady. Before he could knock, the door opened. Frank Keller, late 50s, big frame, sun-creased face, gray hair slicked back like he was expecting company. His boots thudded on the porch planks. "Well, well," Frank drawled, eyes flicking to Isaac. "Didn't think I'd see you two again. You've been trespassing." "No," Jack said, calm and hard. "You've been hurting kids." Frank's smile never touched his eyes. "That one's a runaway. Dangerous. Violent, even. State'll back me up. You bring him back, I'll call it square." Isaac flinched behind Jack. That was all it took. Jack stepped forward and shoved Frank hard against the doorframe, one hand clenched in his shirt. "You think I give a damn about what the state says? I know what you did. You don't just get to hide behind fences anymore." Frank's mask cracked for a split second, just enough to see the cruelty behind it. Then the sheriff's car pulled up. Of course, Frank's brother. The door swung open and Sheriff Keller stepped out, hand already near his belt. But Jack didn't move. "You want to arrest me? Go ahead. But I've got photos, witnesses, and I'm heading straight to the Lakota Tribal Council and the press. You're not burying this." Isaac stepped forward, slowly, quietly. He held out the photo Jack had kept, of him and the other boys. Then he lifted his sleeve. The burn scars on his forearm were faint now, but still visible. That was when Sheriff Keller's eyes shifted, from Isaac to Frank. And Jack saw it. The doubt, the shame, maybe even fear. "Go inside, Frank," the sheriff said tightly. "What?" Frank barked. "Now!" The door slammed behind him. Jack didn't wait around for apologies. Back in the truck, Isaac finally spoke. "Can I stay?" Jack's chest tightened. He looked over. The boy's voice was small but steady. His dark eyes were searching for something more than safety. Jack nodded. "As long as you want." Weeks passed. The Keller investigation spread. Other boys came forward. Frank's name hit the news. Charges were filed. And Jack? He built Isaac a proper bedroom in the ranch house. A real bed, a desk, a map of the Badlands tacked to the wall. Isaac never asked for much, but every morning he fed the horses, helped Jack fix fences, laughed sometimes, and when the wind picked up, he no longer flinched. One night, Jack stood outside the barn, watching the stars rise. Isaac walked up beside him, holding a small chain, the one from the barn. He held it out. "Can we melt it down?" Jack nodded. They dropped it into the forge together, watched it disappear in flame, and in that orange light Jack realized the boy wasn't just healing. He was becoming something unbreakable,